2 years, and Dorinda Randall was his deputy. And if you don't know, the way the state structures this deal is if the chairperson is a man, then the vice chair has to be a woman, or vice versa. So they always do it that way. So those two were the chair and vice chair for the last 2 years. Well, there were a number of people that were not happy with Abraham George's performance, and I'm not saying they were right or wrong. We were prepared to vote for him. We wanted to vote for him. But the criticisms they levied against him were that he didn't get rid of Democrat chairs, really, right? Because of the whole Dustin Burrows thing. He didn't get us closed primaries, although he fought mightily for it. And there were a couple other. The fundraising was questionable. They're not rolling in the dough. They were in debt a little bit on the convention. And so Dorinda Randall, who was his deputy, actually ran against him this year. And she cited a bunch of stuff about infrastructure and training and teaching precinct chairs how to do stuff. And it was all very good stuff, but some people said, well, that was your job as deputy to do all those things. But apparently there was squabbling and infighting between the two of them. Anyway, the bottom line was, she got ahead so far in the early voting in all the caucuses that he actually conceded before our Senate district even got to vote. So he conceded gracefully and joined back to the point of this unity drives victory. He conceded, threw his support behind her, and moved on. So it wasn't really very ugly at all. They are all about, everybody at the state party is all about mending fences, healing wounds, and we have to be together when we get to the midterm elections, because the Democrats, man, this is it. They are pouring more money than you can imagine and that they have ever poured into a Senate race against Paxton. With Tallarico, yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, anyway. But they're going to pour money, they're going to make him look like the best preacher you've ever seen. So unify. We don't want any more infighting. Is what their point was. We elected 2 SREC reps. The state Republican Executive Committee. Our Senate district has 2 SREC reps. Same deal, a man and a woman. The group elected Amy Super and Carrie Cheshire. Carrie's from Tarrant County also, isn't he? They're both from Tarrant County. Both really good folks. We will be using them a lot because I'm pretty sure I know the chairman of the Republican Party of Palo Pinto County pretty well, and he's going to use them a lot. I talked to you about Dorinda and David Covey. David is her deputy, and their theme was Texas is better when it's redder, which is very clever, and I hope they're successful with that. We did a few things on legislative priorities and all this stuff. That was what I call the sausage making of the convention. There was hours worth of meetings and debating and resolutions, and it was very ugly and tedious. So you didn't miss anything on that. And then the last thing I wanted to say is we had some good folks come up. So Abbott came up on stage, talked. Ted Cruz came up. Ted Cruz was mostly he was pretty casual. He was mostly cracking jokes about Tallarico and talking about how important it was to be able to beat him. Paxton got up. Paxton was pretty fiery. He did a good job of talking. Dan Patrick, I thought, gave the best speech. Dan Patrick got up in a black leather jacket. He looked like he was coming out of the Matrix or something. He had this black turtleneck, black leather jacket, black jeans, black boots, and he was talking about the campaign, the political ads. They're going to come out, and he ran 2. He showed 2 of them. And he showed one where he compared the Republican, actually it was himself. He was in the ads. I guess he's going to be the point man for this campaign. But what was he on? Was he on a motorcycle? He set himself in the scene of Paul Revere and the British are coming. But instead it was Dan Patrick and the Democrats are coming. And it was really, well, I mean, it's a really high-tech ad. And then the other one was the Alamo. He was up there, he was in the Alamo fighting to defend Texas. And they're going to be airing on TV and apparently a whole bunch of others. So you look for those ads, they'll really be pretty funny. And very well done. Okay, Joey, you want to...
You've got to talk about Burroughs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Yeah, the highlight of the... You're right. The highlight, last person up was Dustin Burroughs, right? So, unity, everybody's gung-ho, yay. The whole audience, you know, all 4,000 delegates are on board. Everybody's cheering, and it's a big love-in. And then Dustin Burroughs walked up on stage, and about 3,500 people started booing. And that guy, for those of you who don't, you know, Dustin Burroughs is the House Speaker who's theoretically a Republican who rejected the public. You know, he maneuvered himself into the position instead of the consensus Republican, and then made deals with all the Democrats, just like the House chair always does. He got booed the entire time he was on stage. I mean, the poor man, I actually semi-felt sorry for him because he's talking, and you can tell, you know, it's one of these deals you can tell he just wants to get through the stuff he's supposed to say and get off of the stage. But I mean, nobody heard a word he said, and we just booed the entire 10 minutes or so. It was really kind of cute. Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, Joey, you want to talk about the election?
So I guess Cornyn was on a couple legislative sessions before, and they were booing him so much that he ran off.
Cornyn was there?
No, a couple sessions ago, like, you know, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He was on stage, and so I thought Burroughs hung in there, because people, I mean, it was embarrassing, right? It was just boo the whole time, and you can barely hear him. So I am, obviously you guys know I'm from California, and I'm pissed because I want Texas to be tough, right? So I really wanted Abraham George to do tougher punishment against Dustin Burroughs and against the Republicans that went against their own caucus. And so Abraham George was a speaker here, and I'm like, hey, when are you going to take care of the punishment? When are you going to censure them? Oh, well, you guys got to wait. We got to wait. We got to make sure they're doing the right things and everything. And, you know, he never did. Because I heard through Pam, so I never heard that before, that Trump's admin called him and said, don't do it. Don't censure him. So I never heard that before. That makes me not want to strangle Abraham George as much. But we were going to vote for him because supposedly he was the better one. But when I was complaining to some of the political advocates about this race, Dorinda Randall and Abraham George, they're saying, Joey, you have no idea how much we've won in the last 5 years, really. He said, we've never had two conservatives up against each other. That's always establishment conservative. And Dorinda Randall and Abraham are conservative. So we have to take our wins. I just want bigger wins. I want them, you know, I'm not patient. But because I've come into this thing only 4 years in, they're telling me we're doing great. So I just wanted you to know that, because that was encouraging to me. We're not voting for an establishment weenie.
Yeah, we voted for Dorinda as deputy 2 years ago.
Yeah, we voted for, yeah, but they're too conservative. So that's, as a conservative group, that's a big deal. So I wanted to say something about the closing the primaries. So closing the primaries is a process. Matt Rinaldi started it, and Abraham George is continuing it all in the courts, where it's cost a lot of lawyers money. And now they're having to, they vetted judges. I mean, I got the inside scoop on this, and everyone was worried that Dorinda Randall wouldn't continue this fight, because she was supposedly quoted on the South of Texas saying she didn't care about closing the primaries, which is a big deal. But then, I don't know if you've noticed, Abbott recently came out and said we're closing the primaries, and we're not going to wait for the lawsuits. We're going to try to do it in the next legislative session. So this is all great news. I mean, because we want to close these primaries. Last but not least, I just wanted to add, I told Steve whatever I was, you know, if he didn't say whatever I wanted him to, I was going to add on it. So SREC reps, we have 2 serious winners. And that, I don't know if you know what that is exactly, but like when we get in trouble sometimes, you guys know. right? Palo Pinto County, we have, we wanted to do a hand count. We call our SREC rep. How do we do this? If we want to sue the county, how do you suggest this? They're taking away our First Amendment rights. What do we do? They are wise counsel. And we have, I cannot believe the 2 people we got. And so is set up, we had really good reps last time, but they retired and took off. We had one weak lady up there at first wanting to run, and I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna call her for advice. I mean, we need someone that knows what they're doing. And we got 2 winners, so that's a really good thing for SD10. So, okay, now moving on to some exciting stuff. So, our local elections, we have our winner here. Raise your hand, Denise. Woo! So, Denise Adams, who was our incumbent, she is a fighter, and I've talked about her before, but I just got to toot your horn a little longer here. Her dad's from Cuba. I found her on Facebook saying some really good things, and we recruited her because she is a conservative and she knows that freedom has to be fought for. And she's just a brave person, because in Mineral Wells sometimes if you speak up, they take away stuff from you. And she got up there and read the resolution to reduce the water rate. So we wanted to send the water resolution up to the city council and the water board to say, hey, I think you're charging too much. The debt on the schedule isn't correct. And she said, I'll do it. And we needed a Mineral Wells person. I mean, not 1 second did she hesitate. And so she gets up there and she reads this resolution beautifully, by the way. The room is packed. And who do they run against her but a city councilman, right? And who was not elected, he was appointed. And she kicked his butt, 69 to 29. Yeah. And it was a runoff election. Runoff, no one knows the vote. We block walked for her. She wrote an incredible letter about why she wants to stay and why she wants to represent, why she doesn't want elites running her group. And oh my gosh, I've never had such a great time block walking, I have to say, right, Steve? Like, these people were just like, oh yeah, we're Denise Adams all the way. And then I have to say one thing, it was so awesome. Leah Burns and I were walking on Mike Rankin's street, the guy she's running against. And we're kind of like, oh no, do we want to, as neighbors, we don't, are we really tread too close to his home? So we go as far away as we can from his house. We have a list of who's really good voters. And we go up to this lady's house, and he's like, 8 houses down that way. And we were like, hi, we're block walking for Denise Adams, and she's your rep. And she goes, oh yeah, I know about this race. And I said, you know that she's running against a city councilman, that Mike Rankin, who is in charge of raising the water rates, who's not listening. She goes, oh my gosh, yes. That guy is so terrible. We try to talk to him, he just walks away from us. He doesn't care. We need water, and walks away. And I'm like, oh, she goes, when's the election? I go, right now. The election's happening right now. You've got to go vote, or we're stuck with this guy. And she goes, don't you worry, I'm going to grab everybody I know, and we're going to go. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is his street. So then Leah goes, let's go to the house across the street from him. And I go, yeah, let's do it. So we go up there again, literally the house across the street. So we're like, hey, and they're like, oh, that Mike Rankin's the worst. And I'm like, yes, this is so awesome. So, and it was just that great. So, thank you so much for sticking your neck out again and doing this. And I love Denise. Yes, she lives there, and she's so awesome. And so, we didn't win the commissioner race. He lost by 59 votes. But I want to say one thing. This is the first time Andrew's ever run for anything so big. Steve Gray, I keep cheering Andrew up, because Steve Gray lost by 600 votes 2 years ago to the same woman. And so this time he won by 11. I mean, it was a squeaker. So I keep trying to tell Andrew, I'm like, hey, if you really want this job and the Lord's calling you to do this, to represent your people, we'll do it again. And I'm telling you, it was 59 votes, let me tell you. There's nothing out here. And that's 25% of the county. So I'm sad he lost, but Jeff Ryer's been around how long? My gosh, 19 years or something? Yeah, 20 years. So everyone knows his name. So I just think we just need to keep pushing, and we want good representation, and Andrew's a great guy, and we'll see what he does the next time. So, and we in 2 years, another 2 years, we're gonna have some more commissioners running that have talked about putting their hat in the ring that are definitely conservative and critical thinkers. We want critical thinkers, like not just, okay, go ahead and sell your textile, okay. Yeah, and so, no, wait a minute, we don't see that enough. And so we have to fight for that. So, okay, last but not least, I'm going to talk, am I moving too fast? No, I did everything. Oh, and we won everything else, by the way. I mean, literally, across the state, everything. We're such winners, we can't stand ourselves right now. Like Trump says, we're gonna win, win, win. We've been winning. So,
Drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill. So, can I talk, or am I going to talk? Oh, I need to tell you this. We do not have a meeting in July. We take July off. And I usually talk about who our next speaker is, and that's going to be a surprise for everyone. I'm going to try to get people in here about property taxes. Because who's concerned about property taxes? I am. So I'm going to try to get someone in here, what's happening, what Abbott's plan is, and how we can get in front of this, because it's going to be a big deal. And then now I'm going to introduce our speaker. So Wes Virdell, I love Wes Virdell. So there he is. So Wes Virdell is a state rep, and I was really concerned about data centers because it's the hot, but obviously look at y'all in here, right? And so I was like, hey, I want a state rep, I want a senator, I want somebody who's sticking his neck out and saying something. And so I did a search on Texas Scorecard, which is a conservative publication, if y'all don't know. And I said data centers, and I started reading everything on data centers, what they had. And Wes Virdell and Shelley Luther were the only two that were showing up as, hey, we have some concerns, we have some questions. And when I called him, he said, yeah, I have some concerns. And the Trump administration had come down and talked to them, and pretty much, this is what we want, push it, don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. Well, we have a ton of questions, and he represents his people. So I just love that this guy has balls of granite and is willing to go and ask questions, and I knew he was not going to be, I know I'm probably not supposed to say that, but he does, he's courageous, and so is Shelley Luther. And she's the one that didn't shut down her hair salon, and here she's arrested. And I just like these people that are willing to stick their, I mean, these are reps, and Mike Olcott wanted to be here, but they have some health issue with America's side of the family, so he really wanted to be here because he's got some questions and concerns too, and we're all just learning. And I'm just so happy that Wes Virdell traveled 2 hours to be here and share what's on his heart, and we're gonna have a lot of good discussions. And so please warmly welcome Wes Virdell.
Thanks, Joey. I'm going to get my laptop up here real quick. Don't look at my password. Yeah, all right. Hey, thank you all for having me. Appreciate it, Joey. Mike Olcott talks super highly about y'all over here. Mike's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I helped John Francis back when he ran against Glenn Rogers, and then Mike came in and won the race, which is pretty awesome. So I really appreciate Mike. Mike's a great conservative in the Texas legislature. Him and Andy Hopper, Andy's not very far from here, over in Decatur area, Wise County. Or actually, Andy told me it's like 2 hours. Is that right? Is it 2 hours from here? No, maybe? Okay. Not too far?
About 50 miles.
Oh, 50 miles. He just didn't want to come tonight, then, so I offered. Those two guys always bicker back and forth of who's the most conservative in the Texas House. So y'all got a great rep and a great rep nearby. So I am from Brady, Texas. I'm just going to say it, I appreciate the balls comment, and I'll tell you why. In the Texas legislature, I'm on the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, and we had a bill to keep male juvenile, or female, yeah, male juveniles out of female juvenile detention centers. Not rocket science, right? You should be putting them in there. And we had a ton of trans people come up to the committee and testify about why males should be allowed in female juvenile detention centers. And I'm trying to be very polite to the trans people. You know, just they're already struggling with whatever it is and confusion. And so I'm trying to be nice, and I just said, you know, are you okay with someone with male genitalia being placed into a juvenile, you know, I think the question was, are you okay with like a 6'2" male juvenile with male genitalia being placed into a female detention center? And the lady who was trying to be a man was like, what is male genitalia? And she set me up. I mean, gave me the perfect tee shot, and I said balls. And anyways, it went viral, and then she's like, balls? And I was like, you know, if you're born with balls. And then the committee chair had to step in and say, hey, let's get some decorum, while he was falling out of his seat laughing. And so, so that kind of became my thing. And somebody sent me a pair of brass balls. And if you ever watch videos of me on the House floor, like I'm walking around with those, just messing with Democrats, and so it's fun. And by the way, Pam, I miss hers. One of y'all, I miss her, and I thought they said they heard I was a lawyer, and I got offended. And they're like, no, warrior. And I was like, oh, okay, appreciate it. Just kidding, no offense to any lawyers. I got good friends who are lawyers. I am a diesel mechanic by trade, and in a former life I used to work on ICBMs up in Wyoming, and so I I am a blue collar guy that just got tired of what I was seeing in the legislature, and I wanted to have some real representation that stood up and fought, and I'm glad that I ended up getting elected and having that opportunity to stand up for working class people. And common sense, you know, among us is not uncommon or whatever, but you get in the legislature and it actually becomes despised a lot of times. You're rewarded a lot of times in the legislature for being obedient to leadership, and their special things they want to pursue or whatever. They don't like it when you get in the way of that. But enough about that. I'm going to get on to data centers, which kind of falls into some of this. The first thing is, how many of y'all heard of data centers or hyperscale data centers 2 years ago? Like almost nobody, very few. Okay, a few hands. The data centers have been around for a while, but for the most part, it hasn't been a real big conversation, right? It just has happened. Some other states it has been a big conversation, like Virginia and then Georgia and now here. And we got invited up to the Trump, or actually, let me back up some. That was in March. So somewhere in January, I made a post that said, if you want your neighbors to absolutely hate you, sell your land to a data center. And that's a true statement. Now, to be fair, if a data center comes and offers you money, they're going to offer you 10 times per acre, whatever that acre's worth, that land. And so in Abilene, they came in there, which is about 90 miles from my hometown. I'm from Brady, Texas. And anyways, they came in, and land that's valued at about $3,000 an acre, they paid them $30,000 an acre for 2,500 acres. Life-changing for that family, right? Also life-changing for the people that are around there that now have to live with what's happening there. So it's pretty disappointing. But at the same time, like everybody's like, hey man, if somebody offered you 10 times what your house is worth, would you take it? And the answer is probably yes. But I'm not trying not to judge people for selling on that. Let's get into this. What's a data center and what's a hyperscale center? So the hyperscale centers are the massively large, 2 million square feet data centers basically. They work on a much higher level. And then data centers, a lot of times you can fit a data center inside of this room here also. Like it just depends on how big the scale is. On the ones that are popping up, those are hyperscale. Those are massively large, and they require a ton of infrastructure to go in. And then the next question I have, I just made some notes. I actually sat in the parking lot right down here and just wrote down some notes real quick on this. Who builds them and who owns them? So this might surprise you. In the research I have found very minimal foreign ownership on these, which surprised me. I expected to find China was going to be involved, and maybe there is somewhere in a roundabout way, but I actually haven't found where the Chinese has done that. We also in Texas passed what's called the Texas Lone Star Infrastructure Act or program. I can't remember the exact name of it. And it's basically to say that we cannot build any infrastructure that enables China or those folks to be able to get in and mess with our infrastructure, which is good. And I'll tell you a quick story. I'm also a truck driver, and one time I had gone down to the port in Houston and picked up this container. It's a 40-foot container, and didn't know what it was, just knew what the weight was. And I get it, and it's all covered in some very protective coating. And the week before that, a friend of mine who Army Green Beret that goes on to work for a 3-letter agency, and I had stopped and talked with him in another state one time the week before I picked this product up. And I go up there, and we stay up to like 3 in the morning. He's talking about Iran, China, who else was there? Russia, and even the cartel, and how they can see through their intel of that there is collusion between all of them to try to take us out of the way, and that they can see how they've hacked into some of our infrastructure and can cut off what we call our lifelines, which is water, it's propane, or not propane, natural gas, electricity, all those things. And so you see that. Well, a week later, I go to the port, I pick up this container, and anyways, it's container. I end up talking to a guy that's the project, working the project out there where I'm supposed to deliver it at, out in Throckmorton. You know where Throckmorton is? Yeah. And so I go out there. It's a wind farm area, and I'm supposed to meet this guy on the Farm to Market Road, and it's a Russian engineer named Eva. And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so I follow him way back in there. Get out there, they have a bunch of cranes, they end up unloading me, and I asked Eva, I said, hey, I picked this up at the port, where did this come from? Because now my curiosity's piqued. And he's like, oh, China. And I was like, what about, is it all Chinese? He's like, it's all Chinese. And so this is a lithium battery storage. You know what I'm talking about? Battery storage facilities.
Yeah.
This was one of like 12 containers that were being set out there. And at the time, it really kind of got my attention because it was a Russian engineer leading a project, putting in a Chinese battery storage facility, into our critical infrastructure. Since then, that was around 2021. Since then, we have passed the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act. But I do have strong concern about who is doing this now. These are American companies for the most part, from what I can tell, but guess what? They're not Texas companies. A bunch of them are moving here and calling themselves Texas companies, but and nothing against coming from California. I like California. There's some great people that come from California because they see how great it is over here as far as government goes. But anyways, there's a lot of companies coming from California right now, from New York, Illinois. They're all trying to rush down here because we do have a good economy. And from an entrepreneur standpoint, if I've got a project I want to build, I'm looking for where's the cheapest to build it and where's the least amount of government red tape to deal with. Would you all agree with that? It's pretty common sense. And so that is one of the reasons why they're attracted to here. Now let me move forward from that and go to about March time period. A bunch of us get invited up to the White House to go meet with Trump's cabinet. And so it's about a lot of different topics. And the two that really disappointed me was kind of the battery stuff and the data center, or the transmission lines and the data center. And two of Trump's cabinet members are telling us, like, we need to get on board with it. We're in a race against China, that this is critical. They compared it to the printing press. Whoever controls the printing press wins. And so their argument is whoever controls the data centers wins. I don't buy into that. I think there was only 3 of us legislators that during that meeting actually stood up and asked them questions. And one of my questions was, hey, do you understand my district, which is, to give you an idea, my district's the size of West Virginia, goes all the way from the west side of San Antonio all the way to Fort Stockton. So it's about 375 miles across. And I've got 16 counties, and they're proposing, the 765 transmission lines, they're proposing that they're going to go through every one of my 16 counties in my district. So I've got people mad in every county. And I said, hey, you understand, they're running roughshod over my district right now by putting these data centers in and the transmission lines, and we don't want them, we're tired of them, we don't have the resources for them. And anyways, they're just like, oh yeah, we've heard that, and they want to move on. They don't want to discuss the consequences of what it's doing to the locals, right? They're only looking at the biggest picture, which is we have to have this for national security, and past that, we're not worried about the semantics of who gets hurt in the wage, which was really frustrating. I'm not saying that that's bad on the Trump administration. I'm not bashing the Trump administration. What I'm telling you is, not every no administration is perfect, and that is an issue that really bothered me that's being pushed down right now. And anyways, I leave there, which is what you probably saw. I came back and I made a comment, and I also talked to a reporter while I was still up in DC about it. It was like right after the meeting. Like, hey, I'm fired up. Like, I'm not happy with this because of what's happening. So in my district, where are they building them at? Some of them are in the Fort Stockton area of Pecos County, and they're on ranches that are not near anybody and not going to be disturbed. But there is still some resource concerns over there. But they are also building them. I have San Antonio addresses in my district, so Castroville, Hondo, if y'all know where those areas are, they're building them next to neighborhoods over there. It's one thing if they built a data center, nothing around it, and the neighborhoods moved in. You know, that's on the people that chose to move there. This is the exact opposite, which is where they are now running land property values of those that live there. They're running their way of life on the, yes, sir.
Why are they building those close to?
Yeah. Be a good question, Marshall. Well, Marshall's asking why are they doing it, which I'm going to actually get to that in my notes here in a minute. But they're literally, and I wish I have some video. I'm not going to be able to show it to you right now, but went and interviewed a bunch of neighbors that are being built next to one of the data centers, and it's just the construction part's the worst part of it, but it's not the only worst part of it. But their houses are just covered in dust every day, and they were told when this data center came in. There was a 700-acre lot or 800-acre lot next to them. They were told, hey, we're going to keep a certain amount of vegetation and trees and all that between your back fences and our property where we're going to do that, so that way, you know, noise reduction, all that. Well, like the week before I had come by to talk to these folks, they had come in and cleared out the trees and everything all the way up to their fence line, just took it all the way out. One guy, Mr. Mitchell, he retired from the Marine Corps after 30 years, super nice guy. I wasn't supposed to meet with him, but I just drove past his place, and I was like, that is right behind his house. And so I go and knock on his door, and he comes out, and I ask him questions, and he was just like, man, it's miserable. This is supposed to be like my forever home, you know. It's where he bought after he retired and wants to live the rest of his life. And he's like, I lay my head down on the pillow, and I can feel the jackhammer, you know, because they're using jackhammers attached to excavators to break up rock and everything. He's like, I can feel that through my pillow, and so he seems like a guy who wants to be very reasonable, but he's also very frustrated what's going on. I was there, it had just rained, so I didn't get to see all the dust, but anyways, they showed me pictures, and it's just a cloud of dust like all day long coming across their property. And once the construction phase is done, you know, they're being told, oh, this is going to be okay, this will be normal or whatever. And the problem is they built so close to it that they're going to have to hear the generators, the behind-the-meter generators are going to go on. They're going to have to hear the fans that are create vibrations and a low hum noise. And so there is legislation being worked on right now, and I'll talk about that in a minute too. What was your question again, Marshall? On the
Why are they building so close to town?
Yeah, why are they building so close to town? This gets into crony capitalism. I'm going to jump around on my notes here a little bit. So we, as Republicans, talk about how much we value private property rights and free market system, laissez-faire, Milton Friedman, you'll know a lot of what I'm saying right now. Anyways, we're supposed to value those things, and we do. And then the counter argument is, which is they'll tell you, well, that 700 acres that they bought next to the neighborhood, private property rights. They can sell it. We can put what we want on it. That's the problem that really is kind of philosophically being wrestled with right now is, okay, you can buy that property and you can do what you want on it, but if you are now causing harm to your neighbor's property, there's an issue there. And so I think that that's a fair argument that we can approach from. And so we've already got in Texas laws that are related to decibel ratings for different industries or whatever coming onto your fence line. A legislator who, I think he got the most bills passed, or the second most bills passed this session in the Texas legislature, a very conservative guy, always ended up like in the top 10 to 15 on our scorecards. Anyways, he's working on legislation right now related to audible sounds coming across, and so he actually has a neighbor that's about 500 yards from a data center, and he was surprised, and so he measured it, and he's like, okay, we can work on legislation. I think Cody Vasut, that's his name, is you're going to see a very good chance that he's going to get this done. But the problem is there's good actors and bad actors in every industry. And right now we're seeing a lot of the bad actors in data center development. And so the data center development, they were looking more, which I talked about, at, hey, we need data centers. They weren't looking at how do we respect the people in the areas that we're thinking about putting data centers. And so now, polling, this is just how this goes. I've been texting Abbott's guys since February. It's the first text message I can find where I'm texting Abbott's chief and senior advisor saying, hey, y'all are losing support in the hill country. People are pretty upset at the power lines and the data centers, and you're in a contentious race, and y'all are losing numbers right here. And polling just came out. I don't know if it's public, but privately it was sent to me. And anyway, sure enough, guess what it shows? About 7 out of 10 people don't want a data center in their county. Like, it's not rocket science, and a lot of Republicans are turned off by it. And your moderate Republicans, if you go and look at the Democrat ag commissioner candidate right now who's running against Nate Sheets, he's running on a very strong anti-data center, anti-765 transmission line platform right now. Now, I don't know that they actually believe that, to be fair, right? I'm not telling you to go vote for the Democrat. What I'm telling you is, I don't know that they believe that, but they know that they're picking up votes off of this. They know what the polling is. They know that they're going to run that message. And thankfully, Governor Abbott put out last week, after months, put out saying, hey, we do need to address landowner concerns related to these data centers. And so that is good. It's a letter to the PUC. Now remember, that's not official law or anything like that. It's just a letter stating, hey, PUC, we need to be more cognizant of this before issuing. Yes, ma'am, real quick. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, no, I'll get to that.
What did she ask?
Can you repeat your question?
I said, we have known now this one is coming back for 20 years, 25 years, and I heard it. We know that this has been coming on for about 25 years, and we're just wondering why our legislators have not fought for our Texas state.
Yeah, I can tell you it's a good question. So,
I mean, and also the power lines, that's going to put more power, and us poor people in Texas are going to have to pay for the outages and pay more money for our electricity
Yes,
than
ma'am.
what they use.
yeah, so one of the frustrating parts for me on how many believe local government governs best? That's like a standard Republican belief, is local government governs best at the local level. And unfortunately, the state over the last 20 years has taken a lot of control away from local government. And it has to do more with the bad actors, which are Austin and Houston and some Dallas towns. And so they've constantly just repealed back power from the local governments. They're trying to do it again coming up soon. But it's very frustrating, especially when you're from a rural county where your local government, you know your county commissioners, you know your county judge. And anyways, now they're recognizing, okay, we took too much power away from the county governments. And so right now the county governments have pretty much no regulatory authority over this. If they're a municipality, then the municipality has ability to make regulations related to this. But the county governments pretty much have nothing. There is a fire code that a lot of counties are looking at. Hill County, that's over in this, when you're in central Texas, like everything north of me is like close together or something like that. But Hill County, Hillsborough, they tried to pass a moratorium and they got hit right back with a $100 million lawsuit over that moratorium from one of the developers. And so, yes, sir. There's now, after watching that, a lot of counties are scared to even fight against it at the moment, because counties like mine in Brady, Texas, and like Palo Pinto don't have the funds to take on those kind of fights. But we are working on a few different ideas. We're working on proximity requirements, away from residential areas, working on decibel requirements, and we're working on, I drafted a resolution that ended up going to the state convention, and it was to give limited regulatory authority back to the counties. Now that's a double-edged sword too, because if you give too much power back to the counties, guess what? They're going to start regulating whether you can build a barn on your property or what those barn specs have to be and everything else. I want to be able to build a building on my property without the local county having. I hate red tape, same as a lot of us do, but same as the data centers do too, right? They're trying to figure out how to do it. So there has been a push. I filed a bill last session. I've only been in 2 years. Last session I filed a couple of bills, but they both did the same thing. One was to require battery storage facilities have to be at least 500 yards from neighboring properties unless they have landowner agreements. And the second one was related to wind and solar for the same purpose for 500 yards. And so there has been a push. One of the really frustrating things too is in the Texas legislature currently, which has become very exposed lately, and I'm hoping that we'll see a change on it. I'll tell you a story. We were with the cabinet from DC. I'm forgetting his name right now, one of Trump's right-hand guys, and the guy comes in and he's asking us, he's saying, hey, let's talk about immigration. Have y'all been, well, first, this was great. The guy comes in, Stephen Miller, do y'all know that name? So Stephen comes in and he was like, we get rid of all the rhinos in Texas, and you can see like some uncomfortableness in the room, and but basically like we're like, yeah, and we all know that they're in there with us, right? and anyways, we're like, yeah, and then he starts asking questions. He's like, well, let's get into some immigration policy, have you gotten the legal immigrants out of your schools? Like, are we paying employees and taxpayer money to pay for them? And anyways, Andy Hopper is asking a question, saying, yeah, we had a bill for that. And Stephen's like, oh, it passed? And he's like, no, it died. And Stephen's like, well, Andy, why did it die? And he's like, because it sat in committee and didn't get a hearing. And anyways, what Stephen says, why did it die? And a guy named Jared Patterson was in the room, and he says, oh, it was an author problem, which exposed a huge problem, right? And anyways, then what was great, Stephen Miller's like, well, I thought y'all said y'all got rid of all the rhinos. The rhinos were keeping that bill from moving. And so there was some very uncomfortableness. A couple of them got up and walked out of the room. And so we all kind of enjoyed watching that happen. How's that? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Can you repeat that? Oh, so Jared Patterson said it's an author problem, and anyways, what came out of that? Steve Miller says, well, I thought you said you got rid of all the rhinos, indicating that the rhinos held that from moving on. It was a really great moment. That thing became very relevant to a whole bunch of legislators sitting in there that we do have a problem, which is Andy filed a great bill, and because leadership didn't like Andy, they wanted to punish the rest of Texans, based on this. And so that is becoming more apparent that there are a lot of good bills that have been filed. I had a confrontation with the chair of state affairs this session because he wasn't giving one of my bills a hearing. I went and confronted him. He's not used to a diesel mechanic confronting him. And so I had some words I can't say here, but I made sure he knew exactly what I thought of his personality and character and everything else in that moment for why they were preventing bills from getting out of committee. I think what you'll see is they'll probably end up, if they don't like somebody, they're probably going to give the bill to somebody else, which actually recently happened. The Women's Privacy Act, that bill was a great bill filed by Valerie Swanson. She's championed that for years. The leadership was mad at her because she didn't vote for Burrows in the speaker's race. And so they ended up giving that bill to somebody with not a great voting record, and carried in her name. And then she ended up having a tough primary. She barely squeaked by, but she was able to say, well, look, I filed this great women's privacy bill when it wasn't her bill to begin with, which is really frustrating. There's some problems. I mean, the Texas legislature is made up of people, and people are flawed. You remember junior high, all the cliques and everything else that you had to go through? So I kind of thought, okay, it's junior high, I'm an adult now, done with that. Well, it turns out it's not a junior high problem, it's just a people problem. And when you get back into the legislature, it feels like you're back in junior high, but you're really just in a collective group of people that all form their cliques and want to punish people that they don't like and everything else. So it's really frustrating, but going back to Cody Vasut, Cody, as a very conservative legislator, is really good at getting legislation passed. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Why have you not shared it with us so we can write to the senator?
Yeah, I would say you might be making an assumption that I haven't shared.
Well, I haven't.
Yeah, so we do our best to put a lot of our bills out. A lot of time if you go onto my Twitter account or my Facebook account, you'll see where, and a lot of other legislators do this too, will be like, hey, today I filed House Bill 1378, and then here's what it goes to do. And then when committee hearings come up, I'll make a post saying, hey, my bill is going to committee hearing. I need people to come testify for this bill. So.
Okay, well, we need to know it ahead of time before it gets to there because we can't do nothing right away.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we
have to have a couple of months more.
Yeah, the legislature works very fast. When a bill gets on committee, it goes to
That's why I say
committee.
when you write it, pass it to us.
Yes, ma'am, we do. Yes, ma'am.
So that way we can work for Marion. I know everybody goes, well, old lady can't do nothing.
Yeah.
That's not right.
No, so what I would recommend is you go to the legislators you like, even the ones you don't like, follow them and watch what they're putting out so you know when those bills are coming up. I tried really hard because I care a lot about my bills. I've over the years, I have written down a lot of notes on things I didn't like government did or things I think that we should be able to do that are in the way. Y'all saw up there, Texas State Director for Gun Owners of America. I started going to the Capitol in 2011, and we didn't have open carry. That was my big push back then. My real big push was constitutional carry, and we got open carry passed in 2015. Yes, sir. Yeah, there you go. Constitutional carry passed in 2021, and that was because people, and as the State Director for Gun Owners of America, it was my job to make sure, like, hey, I'm going to notify every member of GOA to go out, write letters, write emails, and show up to committees and make their voices heard. And we put enough pressure on them because in the beginning of pushing for open carry and for constitutional carry, we had a lot of Republican legislators that wouldn't support it. The guy ended up taking out and replacing. Same thing, he was telling for constitutional carry, he was telling people he wouldn't support it in 2017 and 2019. There was so much pressure from the public pushing for it that they knew they had no choice but to vote for it, where it affected their election. Yes, sir. Yeah, data centers. So let's get back on that. All right.
I want to ask you something about the data centers.
Yes, sir.
I know that Fort Stockton, Marathon, Alpine area down in there. And is it on? Yeah. I know that area down in there for being a truck driver,
Yes, sir.
counting cattle and stuff. So where are these folks going to get all their water and their electricity to build them out there in the middle of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The water issue. So there's a water district guy, district director out there in West Texas and Pecos County that I like a lot, and I call him all the time and ask him water district issues. And I called him on the one. There's a power plant for data centers going in called the GW Energy. It was on the GW Ranch, and it's the largest AI data center power generation plant, I think, in the country is what's going to end up being there when it's all developed. And I called him, I was like, hey, are you going to permit them for water? And he said, well, we're going to permit what we can allow them. I said, well, how much water are they going to use? And he's like, they haven't told us. And he said, but we're not permitting them any more than what we can afford to give up. And so that's where that is. There's some crony capitalism coming in where you see politics works top down a lot of times from influence of legislators. That's why people need to show up. It's really important. People are engaged and they know, legislators know that, hey, your race is in jeopardy if you don't do the right thing. Because a lot of times you'll see, let me kind of explain it this way. So you have corporations that donate a ton of money to lobbyists. Lobbyists are there to try to protect the interest of those corporations. And there's good lobbyists and bad lobbyists, to be clear. It's not that they're all bad. I was a gun rights lobbyist, right? Not a bad lobbyist, unless you ask Mom's Demand Act, or whatever they're called. Moms, I don't even know their name. But anyways, they'll donate to the lobbyists, then the lobbyists will donate to the legislators. You can go to a website called transparencyusa.com, and you can look up who's donating to the legislators. You can look up the lobbyists and see who's paying them. And that's a way to kind of understand. So you're probably going to see data center folks donating a lot of money to legislators coming up.
Excuse me, I'd like to speak on the data centers as well, because I don't underline what these data centers really are. This is actually my industry. This is actually what I do.
Yep.
How you doing, everybody?
Yeah, I can hear it over here.
My name is Matthew King. I own a company called King's Ransom, and what I do is web development and program development, software development for large companies. I've worked with the likes of Humana Healthcare, doing their billing and coding software, to ExxonMobil, Vivid Metal Prints. I've worked with some extremely large companies. And my concern is because I've actually worked in the industry on these LLMs. It's not technically true AI, they're called large language models. But the underlying issue that I see with these is what they're for. And what they're for is nothing but nefarious purposes. And the purposes behind that, because I've seen with my own eyes what they're actually for. This is to control your cars. This is to control everything about you. Everything. Down to they will know more about you than you know of yourself. They will have control over your money, your car, your home, the appliances in your home, everything. And that's what these data centers, they're the last, I think, projected model that I saw that they're wanting around 30 to 40,000 data centers here in America.
Yep.
Now ask yourself why. Why are they going to now 6G? This is all of this is working in concert to absolutely strip Americans of their rights. And that's exactly what it's for. If you take a look at Ford's patent right now that works with these data centers and this quote-unquote AI, this is so they can monitor every single thing in your car. And it's actually being put forward through legislation right now that if your vehicle thinks that you were drunk or sleepy or whatever, it will not start for you. Your car will determine whether or not you are able to operate it and shut it down. And there's a lot of concern with
Yeah,
those practices there.
I would agree with you, Matt, on that.
This is absolute monitoring of every single aspect of your life. This is so they can implement CBDCs, which is your central bank, is your currencies. This is so I can only
Who all claims to be a Christian?
smart than
He
he's.
claims to be a Christian here. You ever gone to the book of Revelations? That's what you're looking at with these data centers. This is the mark of the beast system.
Okay, Matt, so Matt, I'll tell you this.
I built them.
All right, sir. Matt, I will tell you this. I don't disagree with you that there are nefarious entities out there that want to do that, and every one of us should be concerned about it. So I'm not disagreeing with you at all, just in case you thought maybe we were disagreeing or something like that. So, okay, cool. All right, where were we at on this? Or, yes, ma'am.
Say something really quick to the housing market. I go to Abilene for work, and the hotels are almost always sold out. They're about 4 to 5 times the amount of a normal hotel that it should be.
Yeah.
The housing market is going through the roof. Renters are being displaced.
Yep, so that goes into, we're dealing with a couple, I talked about this on a data center panel at the convention the other day. A friend of mine is from Abilene. My wife for a while wanted to move to Abilene. Now she doesn't, thankfully.
$1,400 a month.
Yeah, so a friend of mine who has several houses in Abilene right now where Stargate's going in. We got a call from another legislator who's really trying to understand the data center, named Alex Schoolcraft. And Alan, oh, sorry about that. I can hear myself. I don't know what's going on. No. Yeah. So Alan has tried really hard to understand the data center stuff, and so he went and visited the Stargate data center in Abilene, and he got the guy, the developer, to come to the Capitol, and about 10 of us showed up. I kind of hogged up all the time, because I asked him a lot of questions, and I was like, hey, do you understand that rent has doubled there in Abilene now, and the regular working people can't afford that? And he was like, we do understand that. I said, do you understand that mortgages, or not mortgages, but home sales have increased in value? He's like, yeah, anybody's trying to say like, oh, but it's a value to the people around there because now restaurants are full and everything else, but he's not taking into consideration. Yeah, so a friend of mine who has a couple houses there, he's had them forever and never made any money on rentals. I think he's 6 to 8 somewhere in there on the houses there, and he's a parts salesman too. And anyways, now he's able to double the rent on all those homes, and it's actually making him a little bit of money, which is pretty good. Which is terrible for the people that live there, right? But this is what is I talked about this at the legislature at the convention the other day. We have a bubble going on. Do y'all remember the emu bubble? Should be plenty of people that remember that. And what happened is everybody all of a sudden highly valued emus like overnight, and then they started like buying a ton of them and building buildings to keep them in, because even if it held, a piece of hail would hit them in the head and kill them. And then overnight people were like, this is dumb. And there were people digging holes and just running their emus into the holes and covering it up after the bubble busted. I have a feeling in some ways that we're dealing with the bubble right now with the data centers. If you look at China right now, they have overbuilt the number of buildings that they needed for data centers. So now they actually have a lot of buildings sitting empty or partially used. I have a feeling right now that we're looking at the same bubble happening in Texas and other states right now, which is, I think we have 400 right now. Data centers or projected, yes ma'am. Yeah,
I
and so.
wanted to compound on that point that I was making with the AI model, that companies, and I mean, this is all research, go look for it yourself, you know, the likes of Google and all the other companies, Apple and everything, with the AI data centers that are created, what they're shooting for, and this is their own projections, they're shooting for a 92% reduction in workforce across all industries. That's another reason for these data centers. And I've seen the workings myself.
Yeah, as a blue collar guy, I'm not too worried about it, but it is a problem that you're going to see a lot of white collar jobs disappearing, and that does concern me there.
For my industry.
Yeah, and we'll just, if you don't mind, we'll hold off till questions at the end so we can work through this. But anyways, you have micro bubbles going on too right now, which is Abilene and many other towns where these data centers are being built. So they're coming in and doing a lot of construction, and then they are driving up the cost of everything, right? And at the beginning, y'all seen this probably happen a lot at the beginning, everybody thinks they're going to get rich off of this. They start throwing a ton of money into it, and then you get the late investors that come in thinking like, oh, look at this. So then they start buying houses that are too high and everything else and property, and they think they're going to make a ton of money, and then that construction ends, that micro bubble disappears, and then you have a collapsed economy after that that's not beneficiary to Abilene. That goes back into crony capitalism too when we talk about free market and private property rights. The cities and the counties are giving abatements to these companies, which I think it absolutely should not be doing. And so this is an interesting part is and I talked to a lot of elected officials in different counties, especially since I have 16 counties, and they all are thinking, hey, we're going to get rich. We've got all these projects in our, not rich like that, but we've got all these projects in our counties that we want to complete. We've got roads that need to be repaired and culverts and everything else. And so they think, hey, we're going to have a ton of revenue coming in. We'll give them a little bit of an abatement. We'll still do well, and it'll be good. And we attract them to our county and some other county. And then what ends up happening with this actually happened. There was a bill filed last session. It didn't go anywhere, but it's like the little foot in the door to exempt data centers from property taxes. You know, so imagine they come into these counties and these local officials think, oh, we're gonna be rolling in money, and then they find out, no, that's not gonna happen. And then also there are bad county elected officials in some counties who say, oh, okay, it's not, we can figure out how to lower your property tax, which is what they're all trying to promise you right now. Like, hey, we're gonna be able to lower your property taxes because this industry is gonna come in and pay so much in property taxes. And anyways, what's probably gonna happen in a lot of counties is they're not going to lower your property taxes. They're gonna take that extra additional income that does come in and use that to build all of their projects that they've had on the back burner. Running the county, running the city, super expensive. A city manager out of Kerrville called me recently and he was like, hey Wes, our insurance is going up 30% this year just for our city employees. Like, you know, how do we afford this? And so they're looking for taxes that can come in and cover 30% increase. And so the elected officials are looking at this from hey, this is going to help us fund our county and take care of stuff that we put on the back burner. I think you're going to end up seeing something later where property taxes, imagine right now there is a push to end property taxes, which I like, I'm not gonna lie, but that's going to include the data centers that are coming into these counties too, right? Like you're most likely gonna see, I don't know what the legislation is gonna look like, but you're gonna see some kind of exemption given to all industries at the same time too, possibly. Trying to think of what I didn't cover real quick. Oh, 765, let's cover that real quick. 765 kilovolt lines are the tallest lines that don't exist in Texas right now. They're about 160-foot lattice structures. And in my counties where they're trying to come through, and I think they're probably coming through around up here also, I put in several letters to the Public Utility Commission on my conflict with their use of eminent domain. The state of Texas, since 2015 for sure, after a Supreme Court ruling, has massively abused eminent domain for private corporations at their own private profits and not for the benefit of us, right? But they argue it's for the benefit of the good. They're trying to come through. Imagine you work your whole life, you retire, you finally buy your dream property, whether it's 30 acres or 300 or 3,000 or whatever, and that's your peace of mind, just like we talked about the guy who bought his house in Castroville and now he has a data center behind it. And let's say that they come in, the state comes in and says, you know what, for the greater good, we're going to put these massive power lines through your property, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Like, you can fight us, but let's be honest, like, the odds of winning is very slim, right? And so right now these lines are coming through. They call it the Permian Basin expansion program or whatever, and they say it's to help the oil field, which is massively expanding and needs a lot of energy out there. But at the same time, you talk to any of these data centers, which I asked the Stargate guy, I was like, hey, do you support the 765 lines? He's like, yeah, we need them to connect to. And so these data centers are looking at these lines as a way to connect to them. They're looking at connecting the subsidized wind and solar to them. And then I was talking to a member who had been a legislator for 30 years. He's retired now, but he still is very much involved in politics. And we were talking the other, I guess it was last week in Austin or 2 weeks ago. And he's like, Wes, you know why they're pushing for the power lines instead of building natural gas generators in key locations? And I was like, no, I really don't know why they're doing that. And he says it's because ERCOT, mainly the Public Utility Commission, has guaranteed a rate of return for the transmission line construction, whereas we deregulated the power generation side of it, and there's no guaranteed rate of return, so investors don't want to come deal with that and how long it takes to build generators. And he said that's why they're doing that. Now on the 765 lines, they have been guaranteed a base rate from the Public Utility Commission. The Public Utility Commission has guaranteed the base rate, so once they build it, let's take Encore will be building through my area. It's going to cost around $15 billion for that part of the line. And they're guaranteed a base rate return that they can charge all of us residential members. And so we're going to see our utility bills go up around $100 to $200 a month. I'm a working class guy. It's not like a small amount, you know, on a monthly budget. And imagine if you are on a fixed income, retired, and you think, okay, my property taxes have gone up, I'm having a hard time to doing this, but at least I know what my utility bill is going to be, and then you see that jump 100 to 200. What's going to happen, according to somebody I trust in that industry, is they're going to find out that they're not recovering their construction costs as fast as they thought they would. And after the first year, these energy companies that built these lines are going to go back to this PUC and ask for a base rate case, meaning they're going to ask for an increase on the base rate that they can charge you. So you could see up to $300 after that. And so between the data centers and utilities, if you look at other states, utility rates have gone up quite a bit over there, and a lot of them believe that it's because of data centers. And then you look at the 765 lines that are going to be put in, there are major issues that a lot of us are pushing back on. I feel like we're like right at the precipice of stopping the 765s from being built so we can have a better conversation. That bill that allowed that to happen was passed in 2023. To be fair, before Mike Olcott or me got there, so don't blame us. But most of the legislators that voted for it didn't know what that bill was actually going to do. I do believe that the author fully knew what that bill was going to do, and the energy companies and everything else. And it shortened from a year requirement request for certificates of convenience and necessity to like 180 days, where basically they can rush through the approval process to get power lines allowed in. And so I know if I had a power line coming through my property, I'd be pretty upset about it. I would want some way to fight it. I tried to file a bill last session to say that they have to pay double the market value of a property if they're going to utilize eminent domain, to try to make it somewhat painful for them. legislative council that approves our bills said it's not constitutional. They're not going to put their stamp on it. And so we're trying to look at different ways. And we're still going to push that idea again, but some other variations too. We want to reform eminent domain to where it's not abused in the way that it currently is. I'm going to go to questions, and we'll probably take 10 questions if that's all right.
I'll do the first one, and then if y'all will raise your hands, I'll bring you the mic, and then we'll move the mic around. So back to the water and the electric consumption, what is the reality about water in particular?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So there are bad actors, good actors again. On the bad actors, what they're doing is they have, let's say you've got a giant tank somewhere, a pond, whatever y'all call it. It depends what part of the state you're from, whether you call it a tank or a pond, and or reservoir. And they're just basically pulling water out of there, using it to cool probably the air that's going across it, and then eventually it gets evaporated. You end up with less water, and it's a bad system. There is closed loop. Sometimes I have concern about that's just a good technical term to make us feel good about it. But I do think that the data centers are trying to recognize that there's a lot of bad actors and they don't want to be in that category. And so I think they're really going to try to do the best they can. Yes, sir. Or sorry. Yeah, we'll do.
So on the closed loop systems, they have other options besides water they can use if you push this regulation. That was discussed at the state convention last weekend as well.
Yes, sir.
Because they don't have to have water to cool them. So I've worked in IT since 1980.
Yes, sir.
I've seen the other systems that are much more efficient than water. So something.
Yeah, and that also goes back to the bubble I was talking about, which is in 5 or 10 years from now, technology could completely change, and what they're building right now may not even make sense in 5 or 10 years. And so, but we are looking at legislation and energy. Let's talk about the energy part of that question real quick, which is right now, I can't remember how much energy Texas is using, but when they estimate with all of the proposed construction of data centers, the demand is twice of what it is right now. That also means when they build the natural gas generators and the diesel generators and everything else, when you take all that in, we're going to double our emissions output in Texas. Now, I'm a guy who doesn't like DEF or emissions components on diesels or anything like that, but I have concern when you're telling me we have 30 million people in the state of Texas, and just with data centers, we're going to end up doubling how much energy and emissions we're putting out in the state of Texas. So that causes me a lot of concern. Yes, ma'am.
So I wear many hats, and one of the hats that I wear is I'm also a real estate broker. I've been doing real estate for 20 years. When I got into real estate, they said, when you buy property, you own everything above you and everything below you. And I got an email, we're talking about water, so I got an email that says, starting July 1st, all TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission contracts will contain a new seller's water notice disclosure requirement. This disclosure covers groundwater, conservation districts, water well rights on the property, as well as surface rights on the property. That's never been done before in 20 years, and they just threw this out at us, that they usually give us more notice than this.
Yeah, so on what you're talking about, surface rights, that scares me, because if you have a tank on your property, or pond, or a small reservoir or anything like that, to me, that's your property. That's nobody else's property but yours. You should be able to do what you want with it. There's fights going on with the BLM out in western states right now over even just modifying tanks. Like there's a guy trying to clean his tanks out for his cattle, because eventually you get enough sludge at the bottom of it. And anyways, they're getting onto him and punishing him for that, which is insane. So now the right of capture, which is the ability for you to pull water out from your property as much as you want, that is going to be a debate that's coming up this session. And the reason is, if you're pulling it from an aquifer, that's a shared resource that we all depend on. And so a data center, if they have right of capture on a property and they don't have to deal with a water district, they could just come in and pull as much water as they want. They can be abusive with it or whatever. And so we're going to have a strong debate and discussion on right of capture. I used to live on a ranch near Menard, if you'll know where Menard is, and it was close to the river. And we had a big fight between Menard County and Brady, McCullough County, because the water was disappearing on a San Saba River, and I lived on the Menard, on a ranch in Menard, and so I got to hear all the coffee talk from both counties. And anyways, but there were a ton of bad actors in Menard County that literally had PVC pipes laying into the river and sucking out of it. But they were also upset because the particular place I lived on had 6 pivots on it, and the landowner we were renting to live there, the landowner was like, this is my water, I should be able to pull as much water out of the ground as I want, and he'd run his pivots all the time, and it's a sprinkler type that half of it just evaporates away, right, which is really frustrating, not efficient on the delivery system, and watching that, I kind of like, okay, I think we do need to have a discussion on shared resources, because I shouldn't be able to take your resource from you if it's a shared resource also. We need to have a real conversation. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting.
Do you think they'll try to include rainwater collection?
I think they're going to try to go for everything, and then that's our duty to fight them at every way we can to make sure it's reasonable. And here's the hard part is expecting reasonable people, or expecting herd mentality in the legislature to be reasonable is really tough. So you got to have the right people that are willing to call it out and that people listen to. Who was next? Yes, sir.
Based on what she was explaining earlier, it sounds like there's not a debate coming up. It sounds like they already know they're going to get it passed. Why else would they already be telling the real estate?
One of the reasons they start doing that in real estate prior to is because they know something's going to be coming up.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to right now protect the consumer, because the Texas Real Estate Commission does not protect realtors, it protects the consumer. And you can go onto the Texas Real Estate Commission website, you can find all this information out yourself.
Yeah, they most likely know.
Now for my question. First it's a comment, then it's a question. When President Trump first brought all this up, I can remember I watched it very carefully. He had all of the, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, all these guys lined up in the Oval Office, and they were explaining all these wonderful things that the data centers and the AI and all this thing was going to be, and the race to beat China, all the things that you've said. The crown jewels of what he was going to see to was that he was going to get them very fast approvals. They were going to be able to generate their own electricity, and they were going to give back to the grid. They weren't going to take away from the grid. And then they talked about, the latest and greatest in construction is all going to be state of the art. Well, going back to your comment about common sense, number one, does the state of Texas, do the legislature, do they have a commission like all these other commissions of experts regarding data centers that know what should and shouldn't be done in advance of even allow these permits?
So I'm assuming that the PUC and ERCOT probably do have committees that meet on that I'm not aware of. I know also as legislators we have like group chats where we are all communicating with each other, and so we're all feeding discussions that we have with experts in the industry from different parts of the industry, because and I guess they took off the, you got electricians and programmers and all that, and they have a vested interest in seeing data centers being built, right, because their income depends on it. And you have developers who depend on, they surely have a vested interest of billions of dollars in this happening. And also, so a lot of times the data centers aren't being built by the companies that end up using them. They're being built by a certain developer that comes in and builds the data center, and then companies like Microsoft or NVIDIA or whatever end up then coming in and buying it or leasing it. And so there is a lot of discussions going on. I can't tell you of an actual, here's a committee that you can look at to do that. But the thing that had been left out for so long is public input. Public input has been pretty much ignored this whole time, and that's why I've been texting Governor Abbott's guy saying like, hey, y'all need to understand, like, this is not going well for y'all. And so throughout, since February to now, when I see them, I have conversations with them, and the last time I saw the senior advisor that I'm thinking of, I was like, hey, I'm serious, like, this is not gonna go well for y'all. And he was like, hey, we're actually hearing that a lot now.
I did a little research, and 80 to 100 decibels at 1,000 yards is about what these data centers, I'm assuming that includes if they're generating their own electricity and all that.
Yeah, for reference, 85 is about the sound of a vacuum cleaner, and that's what you would potentially be hearing at outside your house.
But the 100, I didn't realize this, the 100, that is 4 times, what we're hearing right in here today, the 100 is 4 to 5 times what we're listening to right now.
Yes, sir, and it's not just intermittent, it's all the time. Yes, sir.
And my point being, when they do fracking in the oil business, they put up big sound barrier walls when it's going to be a problem.
Yep.
And when the highway department builds big, huge overpasses, and they've got 6-lane highways for the residents, they have big sound barrier concrete walls. I haven't heard anything said about any sound protection.
So what will happen with if our legislation passes that has a decibel requirement, then the only way that a data center would be able to build anywhere near like a neighborhood is if they did start installing that, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to meet the requirement that we would have. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my question's probably too simple, but are they being required to build a pond or a tank? And can they not recycle their water through a cooling tower system? I mean, I know they've already checked that all out, surely.
Probably a better question for a data center engineer, but a lot of their closed loop system, the way that works is, so when you think about the radiator on your car, that's a closed loop system with ethylene glycol in it, coolant, and antifreeze. And that's most likely what they're going to be using there. They're probably going to have some heat transfer stuff built into that too, and probably run refrigerant systems also, and then eventually blow air across the cooler stuff. And I mentioned ICBMs, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's not what Eskimos do. And does anybody get that joke? No. Okay. All right. Sorry. On ICBMs, our computer systems on the missile actually used a liquid coolant too that we would run from outside of the silo into the missile to keep it cool and back, and that was a closed loop also.
Wes? I was at the state convention and somebody came up to me and was talking about this data center thing, and they said the way we're going to stop this is through environmental avenues. Like, okay, like we're finally going to use what we're always rolling our eyes over, but because of noise pollution. Right.
Yeah, you know, here's the interesting thing. When you're in the oil industry, which I used to haul frac sand also, and in that one, like you've always got the environmentalists trying to stop us because the golden cheek warbler or some lizard or something like that. And it's weird how the table would turn, because now like I'm hearing Republicans like, oh, you're going to destroy the lizard. I don't know. Yeah, but we got to make sure.
Fire with fire.
Yeah, we got to make sure we're actually being really cautious about that, because that's a double-edged sword too.
Well, and I think a lot of us are wondering, like, let's just say we all decide as a group here, like, well, we don't want them, right? We don't want this. We don't want the power lines. We don't want a data center. And how do we fight that? Because I remember that was one of the things you said. It looks like it's going to be up to us to fight this.
Yeah, it almost always comes down to it being up to the people, and that's where legislation, not just I mentioned Cody's, but there's also going to be other legislation to give county commissioners ability to put moratoriums on that kind of stuff, and that's where we need people coming to the Capitol, because here's the reality of a lot of elected officials, not going to say all of them, they're worried about getting reelected. That's honestly, which is really frustrating. Instead about doing what's right, they're worried about getting. So I've been, in an unpopular minority position before, because I don't mind going back to my normal life too, right? I still do my normal life also, but just for, I'm going to sound political here, but my identity is not caught up in the title that is associated with me, if that makes sense. And so, but back to it. People need to go hold their elected reps accountable. Also make sure that you're informed. If you don't know, if you're not exactly sure, you could be wrong in what you're kind of putting out there. And so it's our duty as citizens to be, it's our duty to be as informed and accurate as possible. And also when we go talk to reps, I can tell you just from a representative perspective now, because I've been the activist that, could say whatever I want online and go after legislators and not worry about it. From a legislator perspective, there's a lady, those of you who knew me I ran right before COVID happened. I ran for Congress, which included Palo Pinto, which was CD11 at the time against August Pfluger. We did really well, but we didn't win. Anyways, I'm hardcore against the COVID shot. To each their own is what I believe. But I took a very strong stance against the COVID shot and the mask mandates, and I even put a black and white bust of I paid an advertisement on Facebook, and they punished me for it, of Greg Abbott, and below it said non-essential, and so I took a very, very strong position on that. But you gotta, that's what I was getting at is you got to know how to do it, but at the same time, right now, there's a constituent of mine coming after me about the vaccine shots and about her daughter being injured by it. She's like, why are you not doing anything? I'm like, hey, I was fighting when it was unpopular to do something, but she's attacking me, right? And at the same time, it's like, okay, why would I, if I'm already overwhelmed with everything I'm trying to get done, why would I stop and help somebody that's attacking me when they're wrong about what they're attacking me for? So that's what I'm just saying is, when you go to a rep, make sure you're informed about what you are talking to them about, because if you're not informed, they're just gonna shut you out. Like, think of it this way, if you are a defense attorney and your job is to convince a jury that your client is innocent, you're not gonna win them over by attacking the jury. You're not gonna win them over by being unlikable or unreasonable or considered chaotic or crazy or whatever the case is. You're going to win that jury over by being the most intelligent person in the room, that talks the calmest, that can win the person over. That's what you're trying to do. And the same applies to when you're going to meet with legislators, is you got to give them hell sometimes. There are times to like get in their face and get mad at them, but your first interactions where you're trying to win them over to support your cause and vote for it should be just like a defense attorney trying to win a jury over. Yes, sir.
Well, Wes, did you say that these extra high voltage lines, are they constructed to feed these data centers?
So it's a secondary for it. My research, which I've gone deep into this, and around 2018, 2019, I think is when these projects were really kind of planned and designed. And then there's been different variations of bills that have been brought forward over the years. Drew Darby carried a bill, which I think was HB 1607 in 2021, which was going to make it easier to get the certificates of convenience and necessity, what we call CCNs. It didn't pass. It got pushed back from the conservative side of the Republicans. And then in 2023, he brought that bill back, and Charlie Guerin brought a more expansive bill that met the needs that the oil field wanted, and that ended up being the one that passed. And I think it was pitched in a way to a bunch of legislators where they didn't understand what they were actually voting for on that bill, and that happens. There's been a bill. It was a really good bill. There's I have some of the best staff in the Capitol, and they both went to Pepperdine. They have masters in public policy, really good Christian guys that are just like me on the anti-government. I should say anti-government. I can say that here, right? And anyway, so like they're just scouring through every bill. In the legislature, it's getting to where we're voting one bill a minute, for like a whole day, with sometimes some disruption between there but it's a terrible way to do things, and we're voting on stuff that we honestly, you just hope that your team got everything right the best you can. And as a legislator, when I get that calendar when it comes out the day before, if there's 200 bills on that calendar that we could be voting on for the day, like I'm gonna do my best to go through there and figure out the bills as best I can, but I think legislators got hoodwinked when that bill was put through.
So there was a second part to that question, which is, so if those power lines come true, there was a whole bunch of concern years and years ago about the magnetic fields, the electric fields of high voltage power lines, and these are extra high voltage power lines. So, I mean, has any work been done, scientific study, medical studies on all that?
So there is a request for study. There's a great organization called American Stewards for Liberty.
Yeah, they came and spoke here about these lines.
Oh, good. Okay, Margaret Byfield and Dan Byfield. And anyways, I believe they're requesting a study for that. And that's part of what that CCN, the bill did, is it basically got rid of a bunch of stuff that would have been done to verify this. I have strong concern. I wouldn't want my cattle, roaming around underneath these lines. The other problem with the lines is their fair compensation is only for a 200 easement coming through the property where they put it. They don't actually count how much they devalue your property. They don't count how much they devalue your neighbor's property or anything like that. But there is a lot of concern. My wife, who would get along very well with these two gentlemen here that are gone, she dives into all that stuff and can take some very there they are right there, yes sir. Yeah, they can take some very strong. She'll if you want like the details of all that, like she will go down that hole with you. So yes ma'am. Hey Ruth, how you doing? Beth.
So Elon Musk has a solution for this, and this is to put it in outer space where it's plenty cool, and then you don't have to have the water. You got the solar power constant. And so he is saying that with that for one thing, you don't have the heavy framework and so forth. You don't need all that.
Yeah.
And so you wind up with a very small package that's very powerful. And he says in 5 years, that's what we'll be doing. Now, everything that they're building today would be obsolete in that case, right?
I agree. You'll have a lot of
acres and acres.
There's a plus and a minus to that too, which is that's good that we get all that up there. The plus of that, believe it or not, is that actually if all these data centers come in and build all of these generation sources, and then they no longer need them because we've changed how they're storing data and using data, now you've got all these generators that have been built that can be used to help our grid out. That's the positive side. The negative side is you're going to have a ton of buildings sitting around that people thought was going to be very beneficial. Not people, elected people thought was going to be very beneficial to their communities, and then it turned out not to be. And then there was a guy, UT professor, data center expert, and he was saying that moving them to the ocean and using offshore type data center stuff is hard. Going to space is extremely hard. He said, but Elon Musk is the guy that's capable of doing it, because how many people thought 10 years ago we would be where we're at right now with what, sorry about that, I keep getting away from him. Okay, anyways, who would have thought that Elon Musk would be doing what he's doing right now, which is pretty amazing. And so if anybody can do it, it's him and his team, and so.
Okay, we're gonna have one more question and then we gotta wrap it up at 8. So Dave Bullock, I think you had a question.
The company that I work for, we actually have civil engineers that work for our company. We design roadways and things like that in some of these data centers.
Yeah.
And I was at the convention on Friday and I heard Governor Abbott speak, and it's almost like somebody possessed his brain and spoke through his mouth, because he said things I've never heard him say, and he's jumping on the bandwagon of anti-data centers politically.
Fear.
Because it makes sense.
Yeah, political fear is a strange motivator, and as far as like infrastructure getting in and out of data centers, right now Stargate and Abilene's having massive routing problems right now, because there are roads being blocked off for 4 hours of trucks waiting to get in and bring in. I know a guy who he loves data centers in Castroville area because he owns a rock quarry and they're buying all of his dirt.
I would just urge you to hold him accountable and the politicians accountable, because I mean there are laws on the books now, like TCEQ governs all the stormwater permits for all these projects. They don't ever check anything.
No, and that's one thing.
They don't do anything, and they need to be held accountable, and they can hold these people accountable.
I agree with that. That's what's
and
frustrating.
dust mitigation as well, yeah.
Remember I talked about power coming from up down in politics? Well, when you've got the president and his cabinet, and up to before a week ago, the governor and all that, like staying silent or even supporting, which the governors had supported it publicly in the past. Anyways, you've got them basically pushing down on the agencies like ERCOT, PUC, TCEQ, and TNUM, and everybody else. And anyway, so those agencies, right, if they want to keep their appointed positions or whatever, because they're unelected bureaucrats, right? If they want to keep it, then they're going to do what the commander-in-chief is saying you need to do. And so that's what's really frustrating. Like me speaking about the data centers publicly and about the meeting with Trump, like that's an uncommon thing. That's one of my biggest frustrations is, how many of y'all have heard of the camp safety bill? Do y'all know what happened this session with that? So I represent Kerrville. We lost 119 people in Kerrville during July 4th floods. It was a massive flash flood that nobody expected. There wasn't, in my opinion, negligence. There may have been some mistakes made, but there wasn't negligence. And the legislature, they ended up bringing this bill forward that was really terrible for camps. Some camps are now paying $20,000 licensing fees. Half their buildings are not usable now. It's costing them millions of dollars. 60 camps are out of business. And all of these legislators, like I go around the floor, I work the floor a lot, and I go around the floor and I tell every one of them, like, hey, this is a bad bill. A lot of them acknowledge it in person to me, you know. And then when it comes to take the vote, they brought the families in from that lost girls at Camp Mystic, and that's the ones who are the real driver of the bill. And I'm trying to tell the Camp Mystic lobbyists, like, hey, the families deserve better than this. Like, this legislation is going to be devastating for camps, and it's not going to make things better for what they went through. And anyways, when it came down to the actual vote, you know, I provided an amendment to fix the bill, which would have fixed all these problems that are now happening. I got 37 people to vote with me out of 150, which was frustrating, but surprised a lot of people we got that many. And then when it came to the actual vote for the bill, only 4 other people voted with me against the bill. And they knew the bill was bad. They knew how bad it was going to be for the camps, but it was more convenient for them to vote, and not lose their seat at the table. If the best way I can say that. So when you have TCEQ and what data centers are doing right now is they're initially going in and getting a small level permits to do what they're doing, and then they start building, and then they get the bigger level without any real hesitation because they got that small one to begin with. And so we need agencies that are going to stand up and fight for us, but that comes from leadership too and the people up above.
You're never going to stop data centers, I don't care what you do, but you can regulate them, and you can put laws in effect that limit what they can do to certain capacities in areas where they can't be so big. But
yes,
I've seen 3 different projects that we're working on. They all have closed loop water systems.
Yeah,
so they are doing that.
They are now getting more pushback than they ever imagined they would get from the public, and public opinion is forcing them to be better actors than they have been. And looking at Granbury, which is not very far away, Granbury was, some of y'all are familiar with that, but they're trying to put on a ton of them next to people's residential areas. One of them is a really nice neighborhood. And so there is pushback. The public narrative, I think, is winning now, which when the polling says 7 out of 10 people are against the data center being in their county, these data centers now know that they have to do a better job than what they've been doing. And Matt, I'll close on, oh, you got your hand up too. All right.
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
My question is on these data centers, are you for them or against them?
No, I don't like data centers. I'll tell you this though, I use AI a lot. There's a bunch of people in the room that are probably using it too. And anyways, it has its value. Like if you look at my queries, I think I'm saying that right, queries, however you say that, gotta be careful how I say that word.
Especially around here.
Yeah. But if you look at like my searches, like I'm using them, for very specific technical reasons, like to my benefit, making YouTube videos and all that stuff. Like it's not mine. That's where a lot of data is. But I will close on this, Matt, which I agree with you. I don't trust my government. Just to be fair, like there's good people in there. I work with some really good legislators, but I don't trust the overall herd mentality that happens in government, because this is what's frustrating. I watch people go there, campaign on the things, and they believe the things they campaign on, then they get there, and then all of a sudden they're in a fog, and they forget what they stood for, and they start supporting, like, they don't like what one person's doing. It's like, oh, we need to figure out how to track that, or how to do that. So when you get into, especially at the federal level, they want to know everything about us. Remember the Patriot Act? Real patriotic. This gives them a capability even higher than they ever had when they passed the Patriot Act. And so there's where my real concern is, and we need legislation that protects us. I think we can do it on the state level, but we need people to vocally push that back. And that's, remember the of the people, for the people, by the people. Like that's not just a catchphrase. That's like the real deal of here's how we hold politicians accountable and our government accountable. And so just my encouragement, which Ruth and Beth do, like I see them at the Capitol all the time, just like get involved. When I started going to the Capitol in 2011, I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I cared about something. And it turned out there were a lot of other people who cared about the same thing that I cared about. And enough of us showing up there and putting pressure on them changed it to where they knew if they didn't pass what we were pushing for, it was going to affect them in their legislations, or in their elections. All right, thank you, Joey, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wes. Really appreciate it. We're not having a meeting, like I said, in July, and if you're not on the list, get on the list, either with text messaging, and I need to tell you this. I have been personally copying and pasting it, for my 760 number, right? Remember, mark your calendars, all that. We have too many people now. So I'm getting neck pain, and we have over 400 people in this system. So you're going to be getting a text message. I'll say Palo Pinto County Conservatives at the top, but it won't be coming from my number anymore. It's me, okay? Because I'm going to pay somebody to help me. So it's not that much money. It's only like 20 to 40 bucks a month. But I just need help. We grew into a good thing. It's a great thing. But I just wanted to warn you, because we get weird text messages and things. The newsletter, the email will be the same. That seems to be fine. But I'm getting tired. So you'll see that coming up most likely in the next couple of weeks. So I love you guys, thank you so much, and we'll be in correspondence soon. Okay, bye.
Take this down too.
No, he didn't have that. No, all he had.
Hey, you too.
Mark, I never did. I never did. He goes, you open my eyes, I will shred it. Oh, you open my eyes for something I never would have thought of. Show it. Give up. That's already done. You want to we got to they just take the old million and a half. That's your shit out. That's my short.
I gotta get this down.
Sorry.
Forward.